Hello viewers, I would like to discuss a few more problems related to an all digital PlayStation Store ecosystem. So recently, PlayStation removed around 500 movies and shows from the accounts of its users, for which the users paid separately. They were not part of a subscription because PlayStation's licensing deal with Studio Canal ended, and Studio Canal is one of the leading distributor of shows and movies. And users weren't even refunded for the lost content. And few days ago, I was listening to a YouTuber, so he compared this shit with how Amazon deals with such situation. So I would like to show you a section of that clip.
About a year or two ago, I'd actually made a couple of digital purchases of TV or film on Amazon Prime, and I got an email saying that the licensing agreement for those have dropped and I can no longer watch them. The difference was that Amazon actually refunded me on my purchase.
So now, as you guys can see, that even Amazon is much better dealing with such situations instead of PlayStation. So Amazon actually refunded users for the content which was deleted from their accounts due to licensing issues. So if Sony can do this with movies and shows, so Sony can do it for the games as well. Now another point which I would like to discuss is that all digital gamers and PC gamers argue that you physical game characters are crybabies. PC transitioned to all digital gaming a long time ago. So in fact, consoles are quite catching up late with this transition. So why are you guys keep crying? So the thing is that PC is an open platform, and in PC there are numerous digital stores. For instance, Steam, Epic Games Store, GOG. So that leads to more competition in the PC gaming space, and competition leads to more goods and services and better prices for customers. That's why Steam, Epic Games Store, GOG, they often offer great deals on games. While the consoles are a closed platform, and in case of PlayStation, there will only be PlayStation Store. So there will be no competition at all for the PlayStation Store, and it will not have even competition after 2028 from the game discs. So probably PlayStation will cause more exploitation of customers by charging more exorbitant prices. And GOG is also DRM free, so it means once game purchased that belongs to the user, and games can be played offline. And even once games purchased, they can be burnt or they can be printed on the discs as well. And GOG itself has assured customers that even if games get delisted from the digital store, users will not lose the games which they have purchased. So now we need to understand that why PlayStation wants to transition to an all digital PlayStation Store and PlayStation Network ecosystem, and why it wants to completely wipe out the game discs. So Dr. Sarkan Toto, who is an analyst in a games consultancy, Canton Games or Kantan Games, I don't know the exact pronunciation. So he used this picture to explain the situation. If a game is if a first party game is sold digitally through the PlayStation Store, and first party means that the developer is owned by PlayStation. So no retailer's margin, entire entire revenue from the sale of a game belongs to PlayStation. Whereas if a game disc is sold physically, so a major cost is of the retailer's margin, and that is around 30%. And then there are manufacturing and print distribution costs as well. After that, PlayStation will be left with around $46 per game. And in the case of third-party games, third-party means that games are sold on the PlayStation Store, but they are made by the studios which are not owned by PlayStation. So if a game is sold digitally on the PlayStation Store, so PlayStation Store charges around 30%, though it can vary depending upon the developer. And then PlayStation will be left with $49. And if a third-party game is sold through game disc or physically, so retailer's margin, and probably this licensing fee is charged by the PlayStation. So obviously, if a game is being sold on the PlayStation platform, so PlayStation charges commission for it. So this is the commission which is earned by PlayStation on sale of third-party games on its platform. And then the publisher or developer of the game, they will be left with around $35. Though all this data is based on estimates, and actual data can slightly differ. And he, along with a few other analysts, they are trying to defend the decision of Sony of abandoning physical disc by 2028. So seems like Sony actually wants to get rid of this retailer's margin, and they want to keep all this money for themselves on sale of games. Though the major success of PlayStation and one of the features of its brand images that customers can own games on the discs. So that was one of the appealing features of PlayStation. So that's why considerable number of gamers they remain committed to PlayStation rather than moving to PC gaming, so that they can own game discs. And PlayStation is willing to piss off a majority of its fan base to earn just a few bucks on the sale of its games. And here is another analyst, Mr. Daniel Ahmad. He's also an analyst at a at a consultancy company. So he's also trying his best to defend Sony's anti-customer decision. That because PS5 UHD Blu-ray disc is of 100 GB, so if a game is above 100 GB, so it will have to manufacture multiple discs, and that will increase cost for PlayStation. And then there are other costs related with manufacturing of disc and selling sale of disc as well. And if we take a look at the profile of this guy, the guy is very political and he's a hardcore wokey. He panders to the left. Obviously, he can have his opinions, posting about politics all the time. Though it's always recommended for such people to stay away from politics and just stick to work on their social media accounts. But they cannot control their political urgings. So if he's a leftist and he panders to the left, and if he's a Wookiee, so probably he hates capitalism and he admires a communism, socialism, etc. And just like this idiot, I'm also a Muslim. And people like him cry out that there is Islamophobia and Muslims should also get better representation in platforms like gaming. But he's going out of his way. Actually, such people are quite hypocrites when it comes to their own benefit. They ditch all the teachings of the Holy Church of the Book and they resort to capitalism. So actually, I called him out on this post that probably you are giving favor to PlayStation. So how such consultancy firms and such analysts how they stay in business, that they do corporate bootlicking so that they can get more data from corporates like PlayStation, and so they can pitch to clients that we get exclusive data which you cannot find anywhere else, and that leads to sales for such companies or increase in subscriptions. And I'm going to show you that as well. So I called him out on this shit. But such people never call out PlayStation for their wasteful spendings, such as on live service lobs and on the single player games, which majority of the PlayStation's fan base doesn't want to play. And even I didn't do any swearing as such. But even if I hadn't written corporate bootlegger, probably he would have blocked me. And you can also see the a person with the pride flag is commenting here. So so I'm a Muslim and he's also Muslim, but he didn't bother replying me. Replying to the person with a pride flag on the bio, that was more important for this idiot. So idiots like him, they only admire those Muslims who are good for pushing their agendas and their politics. And more than Islam, uh, following the teachings of the Holy Church of the Book is more important for these people. And when I called him out on this, what he did in return, fellow Muslim by the way. So this fucking idiot blocked me. And then they cry Islamophobia and Muslims should also get a voice. So he blocked his fellow Muslim because he didn't like my criticism. So people usually think that I'm a Muslim, so obviously I will chill for this guy and I will agree with each and every of his shitty posts and shitty opinions. No, that's not the case. I'm not blind. Now, people like him argue that obviously Sony being a corporation, it needs to reduce costs, increase sales, and increase profits. Typical capitalistic teachings. And though people like him pretend to be communist and socialist, but they are hell bent on defending one of the pro max capitalistic moves by PlayStation. And you can see in 2023 he wrote about his promotion. Not lead and further develop our entire syndicated research and insights subscription line of business. So obviously, if people like him call out Sony or if they make posts against Sony and if they try to show PlayStation in a negative light, so these guys are not going to get exclusive data for their useless research and their useless analysis from PlayStation, etc. So now if we talk about that, what cost can be reduced by PlayStation, that is an important thing I would like to discuss with you guys. So a time ago, Concord failed horribly, and within 1 week of release, it was delisted from the PlayStation Network. And it was estimated that Sony spent around $400 million on Concord. Another live service Marathon that is also not doing well because of the Bungie's poor performance and the poor performance of Marathon. PlayStation recorded a 765 million impairment loss. Impairment losses are recorded when an investment or an asset performs well below the expectations of the company. So in that case, such expenses are written off and they significantly decrease the profits of the business. Include Destiny 2 and Marathon did not meet expectations. Upcoming live service game Horizon Hunter Gathering, in which the trailer has massive dislikes. Another upcoming live service flop, which is in development hell, that also got massive dislikes. So this shows that majority of the PlayStation's fan base, they are not interested in live service flop. Only Helldivers 2 was a success, and many other live service initiatives of PlayStation has failed so far. And even if we talk about single player games, for instance, God of War, Ragnarok, Horizon, Forbidden West, and Spider-Man 2, they sold less in PS5 than the PS4 parts. And Spider-Man 2 is Pro Max in terms of agenda pushing. I think so. That game was probably made for a DI and ESD reports. And recent release of PlayStation Saros that also struggled. By the way, when I saw the Saros trailer and Saros gameplay footages, even it's a technical review video by Digital Foundry. So actually, I was interested in this game because the graphics, the particle effect, the gunplay, the roguelike elements, and the environments are quite great. And it also made correct use of the Unreal Engine 5. So this game doesn't have the typical Unreal Engine 5 problems which many games in this generation have. And it is also one of those PlayStation first party games which is not a movie like game. This is a game with proper boss fights, proper gameplay, which has to be played with dedication by the gamer. But you guys might be thinking that if it seems like a great game, so why it struggled to sell? Because the developer of this game, Housemarque, they prioritize agenda pushing. So the story of the game is that men too terrible and women too good. So that pissed off a lot of gamers when the information became public. So a lot of gamers who pre-ordered this game, they cancelled their pre-orders, and a lot of other gamers who were considering buying a disc of this game, they backed out from their purchases. So that all this massively affected the sales of this game. And before that, the same Housemarque developed Returnal for PS5, and it was a launch title to show the potential of the PS5. And in that game, there was only one problem that the character looked like a 50-year-old auntie. Other than that, there was no agenda pushing in that game, so that's why gamers still enjoyed that game. But in Saros, they prioritize agenda pushing. Just imagine if there had been no agenda pushing in Saros, I can say for sure that the game would have sold really well, or at least decent. If we talk about Spider-Man 2, so if you want to see your Pro Max DI in ESG game of PlayStation in this PS5 generation, that's Spider-Man 2. It's even worse than The Last of Us 2. So instead of spending money on gameplay, and another surprising thing about Spider-Man 2 is that they use most of the assets from the PS4 Spider-Man game. So, but after that, still the budget of the game is quite high, above $300 million. So why that's the case? Because Insomniac wasted money on shit like this. So the motion capture and performance capture of deaf character was more important, and for that, deaf consultants, deaf mocap actors, and I can say for sure that such consulting and such performance capture, motion capture is not cheap. Because for performance capture, motion capture of a deaf character, probably extra things need to be done. And if you guys are interested in details of this, you guys can read this article. I can understand it yourselves. So this money could have been could have been spent in offering more gameplay variety, additional areas, and I've heard rumors that initially there were plans to expand Peter's gameplay sections and even the gameplay section of Venom, which is in the game. Actually, it was intended to be longer, but because of prioritizing such bullshit, those ideas were scrapped. And their upcoming game, Intergalactic, you can see how well the trailer is received. Massive dislikes. So it means besides live service slop, even many of the first party or exclusive single player games which PlayStation is releasing or will be released in the future, they are not desired by the majority of its fan base. So majority of its fan base want a Killzone game utilizing the power of PS5. No. An arcade racer utilizing the power of PS5. No. Bloodborne remaster or remake. No. A new Uncharted game utilizing the power of PS5. No. So here's another example of how PlayStation is wasting money. So they've hired Jack Wade, who acted in the series The Boys, for a Cube character. And even for a Cube character, motion capture and performance capture is being done. So isn't it this Cube character could have been easily dealt by hand animations, and that would have costed significantly less. So this trend of hiring mainstream actors and actresses and using their likeness, their voice, and even using them for performance capture and motion capture, I think so this trend should come to an end, or at least it should be used at bare minimum. That's leading to unnecessary costs for these gaming companies. And for Santa Monica, God of War Ragnarok, those sold really well, but it sold less than the God of War 2018, which was released on PS4. So isn't it for the upcoming game, which is considered a spin-off? So PlayStation and Santa Monica should have been careful with costs, but no. And analysts are supporting PlayStation for this decision as though PlayStation is not making profits. So in a Push Square article, they've even attached a slide from one of the presentations. PS5 is one of the most profitable generations. Revenue and profits are exceeding that of the previous generations. And PS4 generation was one of the most successful generations of PlayStation and the PlayStation 2. And in all the previous generations, physical media sold much more than the digital option of buying games from the PlayStation Store. So how those generations were profitable? And Ghost of Yode, another game which was made for critics and awards, that was not wanted by majority of its gamers. Majority of its gamers wanted a sequel continuing Jin Sakai's story. And this supplemental information is for 31st March 2026. So up till March 2026, a game which was released on November 2025, only 3.3 million sales. And I've also showed you guys sales of Saros as well. So I can say for sure that these sales are not good at all for flagship exclusive flagship first party titles of PlayStation or PlayStation exclusives. So my pointed that why only this point is being emphasized on of removing an option for the customers of having a physical disc for their games. So if PlayStation reduces spending on live service lobs, make single player games which majority of its fan base wants to play. So they will sell really well physically as well as on the PS Store. In that way, Sony will PlayStation will make more money. And so after that, it can take a slight hit on their earnings by continuing the option of game disc for its customers. And another thing I can say for sure that the decrease in earnings because of continuing with the option of physical discs for its customers, the reduction is much less than the money which PlayStation itself has wasted on live service lob and on games which majority of its fan base is not interested in playing. So I will continue with this topic in upcoming videos, and I will also in future make walkthrough videos, live streams, etc.